What's up guys, it's Finn from Coin Camera House, and today I'm going to be showing you how to turn this picture of some dirty concrete and this picture of a bowl of soap into a futuristic spacescape in Photoshop. Let's get started. First we'll just create a new Photoshop document, make it 1000 by 1000 pixels, 16-bit color, and let's create that. So I took this photo of a bowl of soapy bubbles in a pitch black room, and I used my phone torch as the only source of light onto it. And you can see it already kind of looks like space, but if I scale it up a little, go into curves, and I crush the blacks and do this, you can see it's really starting to look like a good background for this image. I'll just make another adjustment layer of hue saturation and make it so it's pure black and white. Doesn't change much, but there you go. Now I'll select all of these layers, press Ctrl E, and now that is baked in. That's just applied to the layer. I'll also just drag it down a little to fix the positioning of it. There we go. I'll also name this layer background, and I will lock the layer, and I'll delete the old background layer. Next thing is I'm going to clean up the texture for our planet. So I'll drag this image in, get it to where I think it'll be. I can see I've got some curved lines in this image, so I think I'll make it so those lines kind of curve with the planet. So I'll make it this kind of shape. Now often when you import something, it'll import as a smart object. That's what this little icon here means. To fix that, we just need to go Layer, Rasterize, Layer. And now we can use the healing brush tool on it to remove any of these little distractions. Now we'll do the same thing for this layer. We'll have a mess with the curves and also the saturation. I'll make a hue saturation adjustment layer, bring the saturation way down, and I'll also make a curves layer, and I will just lighten it a little, like this. There we go. The hue saturation layer I'm going to want to bake in, so I'll select those two, press Ctrl E. With the curves layer, for adjusting brightness and contrast, I'm going to press Alt and then click, or Option click if you're on a Mac, and that will make it so that it only applies to this layer, and I can still adjust it later if I like. We'll also rename this layer Planet Texture. Now we need to create our circle selection for the planet. So for that I'll just go up here, choose the elliptical marquee tool, hold down Shift while I draw it, and it'll be a perfect circle. And then, to get it nice and centered, I'll go to Select Transform Selection. And from here, I should be able to move it around and it'll snap to the center like that. And I'll probably grow it a little as well. There we go, looks good. And now, with this perfectly centered, perfectly round selection, I will go to the Planet Texture layer and press this button here to create a layer mask. And have a look at that. So now we're going to pick a color for our planet. So we need to go to the adjustment layer thing, press Solid Color, and then we'll pick a desaturated color. Click about here in the color picker, but you could pick anywhere along this spectrum. I'm going to go with red. And now that's applied it as an adjustment layer to this. That's not what I want. So we'll press Alt click to unlink it, chuck it on top, and then we also need to apply the mask from our texture to this. To do that we'll press Control click on here, go up here, delete the layer mask, and then we'll create a new one with this selection here, and you can see it's a circle now. And now that we've got it at the right shape, we'll drag it below our texture and change the blend mode of our texture to multiply. Now the fine details on my texture, they actually complement the curve of the planet, as you can see. But if that's not the case for yours, you can unlink the layer mask and then go up to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and then just choose an amount to get rid of those fine details. But I like it on mine. So now we'll create a new layer yet again, make sure it's not linked like this, and now we're going to use this for the shading. So we'll copy the layer mask from down here by doing Control click on this layer mask and then apply it to this new layer here. That won't have done anything yet, but as you can see the mask is there. And now I can go here and use the gradient tool, make it so it's one of these basic black and white gradients, make it so that it's white in the middle and then black on the outside, and I'm going to make it so where I start clicking that'll be the brightest spot, and then I'll drag down here and that'll be the darkest spot. And then when I change the blend mode to multiply, you can see how nice that looks. Now right here I'm noticing a very small issue where the shadow isn't covering the very edge of the planet here. So to fix that I'm going to just transform this layer. I'm going to select the layer with the shadow, Control T, and I'll just scale it up by 1%. I'll make this 101%, and that will have fixed it there. Now that I've got the shadow applied, I can see that the whole thing's looking a little bit dark, so I can go into my color fill layer here and select a lighter color for the planet if I like. There we go. Now this is already looking pretty cool, but there's one last little bit of polish I'd like to add, and that is a big old lens flare and a rim light behind it. So I'm going to create another layer on top. I will copy the selection for the planet, and I will now use the marquee elliptical tool, and I will hold down Option so the little minus sign appears, and now I can subtract this from the selection, and I'm left with a selection like this. So in order to make the selection a little softer, I'm going to go to Select, Modify Feather, and make it 5 pixels. Yeah, that probably will have done it. And now I will use the gradient tool again, make it so it's still circular. I'll make it so this is the brightest spot, that's where I'll start my gradient, and I'll make it so there's a little darker. There we go, that's looking nice to me. Now we'll change the blend mode of this to screen, and I will just move it a tiny bit up like this. Photoshop doesn't like making a transparent lens flare, so we're going to have to make a new solid color layer, make it so it's just black, and then we can go to Filter, Render, Lens Flare, and we'll rasterize it. Now we can select where our lens flare is going to come from. We're going to have to estimate it. We might take a couple of takes because it doesn't let you see the other layers while you do this. Select the one you like. My favorite is probably this one here, and we'll press OK there. Change the blend mode again to screen, and you can see that was actually really close to being lined up. So I'm just going to go Control T and scale it up a little, and there we go, that's nice. And now I'm just going to add a tiny bit more shading to the planet itself, make it so it's a little brighter up there. So I'm going to copy this slightly expanded selection I used for the shadow, and I'm going to use it to make a highlight. So I'm going to Control click on this, make a new layer, make it so that this selection is applied as a layer mask, and now here I'm going to use the gradient tool to make another gradient that's going to be very similar to the one I used for the shadow, except this one I'm going to use a blend mode that makes it so instead of the black bit darkening, the white bit is going to lighten instead. So I will make the gradient look something like this. Yeah, that's going to work well. And now we'll change the blend mode to screen, which is my favourite one for lightening things. And now I can probably go down into this colour layer and maybe change this to be a little richer again. Yeah, I like that. And now I will go up to my highlight layer and probably lower the opacity to 50%. Yes, I'm really liking the look of that. So that's my finished artwork here. You can see what I've done here with all the adjustment layers and doing this in this very complicated way. That makes it so anything can be adjusted later. For example, I can take my texture and I can move it around like this, you know? I could take the lens flare and I could change the opacity because I never merged anything. I could change the brightness of my shadow. So that's the benefit of working with adjustment layers and layer masks like this. I hope you learned something, and thanks for watching. See you later.